Hello everyone, I am Lavina and along with my teammates Nikhil and Shannon, we are from Group 7 and today we will be presenting our final project topic, that is Cardiovascular Health Management System. So the main purpose of selecting this as our project topic was that we did some research and we found that the number one causes of deaths currently is due to the different cardiovascular diseases. And we found that maybe if the cardiovascular diseases are detected at an earlier stage, and if there is some management and proper treatment given, then we can reduce this number of deaths. So a proper management system which will have all the heart and patient information along with the hospital details and the doctor details, and that will store all the patient relevant information with the heart diseases will be of a really great help in tackling this problem. So now moving on to the scope and objective. So the main scope and objective was to maintain information of all the doctors and the hospitals that would be helpful for the patients. The next one is to keep track of all the patients' health for detecting heart failures. Here we are keeping track of the different the vitals of a patient which could lead to a specific heart condition, and also to identify the number of deaths due to the cardiovascular diseases in a particular hospital and to get an overall count of it as well, and to also make patients aware that they when we know that they have a heart condition, so that we can give them early treatment and reduce the number of deaths. So moving on to our data architecture diagram. So as you can see, our main data sources is the heart and patient information that we have used in the form of Excel or CSV files. We are using this to these files with a ETL tool, that is Talent, to load the data in our relational database. For that we are using the Microsoft SQL Server, and from there we are using we have generated a script which will load the data into our Azure Cosmos DB, and we are also storing the graph related DB in our the Gremlin API. And for our visualization, we are using Power BI and the G.V. So for Power BI, we are used with our Cosmos DB documents for visualization, and we are using G.V for our graph database implementation. Moving on to our ERD diagram, as you can see, we have 10 different entities to store all the relevant information relating to the hospitals, the doctors, the patient information, and the symptoms that the patient has related to the heart diseases, and the appointments taken, and then the treatments given, so that we can understand that the overall survival and death. So to elaborate more on this, we have patient-related information stored with patient as the primary key. We have the patient, the CVD symptoms. Let's say if a patient takes any test, then all the vitals related information is stored over here, and we have a column called as the heart disease, which is to detect if the patient has a heart disease or no. Then we have, we will be over here, we have the patient awareness, which has a field called as contacted, which is we will be contacting the patient, uh, informing them that they need a treatment, and this is to create awareness among the patients at an earlier stage. And then we are storing the treatment related information in a table over here to understand which treatment has been given to the patient for which heart disease. And then this is the recovery details. Here we are storing the number, like after the treatment is given, whether the patient has survived or whether the patient has died. This is the graph representation of our model. So we have the patient over here. So when the patient has a symptom, he takes an appointment, and after he takes an appointment, the patient gets a treatment, and the treatments are for the patients. I'll now pass it on to Nikhil from my team to carry on.
Thank you, Lavina. So this entire process, we have scheduled it using Windows Task Scheduler, where on weekly basis, every Saturday at 5 o'clock, our Python script would be executed, and the data which has been loaded in SQL Server Management System using Talent would be migrated or ingested into Cosmos DB. So these are the talent jobs that we have designed and ingested into our enterprise data warehouse. And for the EDW, we have used SQL Server Management System. And these are some talent jobs that we have implemented for loading the data into tables such as patient details, CVD symptoms, patient appointments, recovery details, awareness, acknowledgement, patient awareness, and treatment details. And after data is successfully ingested into our warehouse, we are then manipulating it using for JSON path to convert our relational structure into a JSON document. And this is a screenshot which I was talking about, the task scheduler, where we have scheduled it to fire on every Saturday at 5 o'clock. And once the data is converted into JSON format, the same data is now we are loading it into Cosmos DB. And for the loading part, we have written this Python code. So the first part is to install the dependency packages of Azure Cosmos DB using pip install. Once the dependencies are installed, we are then setting a connection string for two DBs, that is one Cosmos DB on Azure platform and for our SQL Server as a local on-prem storage. So from local on-prem storage, we are going to transfer the data to Azure Cosmos DB using this Python script where we have written a cursor, and sequentially it will write one line at a time and load it into our Cosmos Azure DB. And the main thumb rule of this logic is we have used upsert, which is nothing but it actually works as a merge in SQL, where the underlying data set, if it has any new data, it will insert, or if the underlying data set is updated, the same data would be updated in our Cosmos DB. And this is the screenshot that we have loaded in our Cosmos DB. And this is the graphical representation where we have leveraged Gremlin API to represent our graph structure. And for the graph structure, as Lavina explained, we had 4 nodes and the related edges for that. So basically, if a patient has any symptoms, he or she goes for a doctor's appointment. After getting an appointment, the patient goes for treatment. Shannon to handle the remainder of this presentation by explaining the visualization part.
I'll be talking about the visualization. So now we have the first visualization in which we are able to see the number of patients for each hospital. So we have a total of 100 patients. And here, for example, the second one is Boston Specialty Hospital, which we are able to see there are 8 patients in it. And now to the next slide. In the next slide, here we are checking the count of patients with or without a heart condition in the top 10 hospitals. So the top 10 is decided based on the number of patients. So in the first hospital, here we are seeing Alcon Hospital. Here we can see the navy blue color is represents the patients who have the heart condition, some kind of heart condition, while the light blue color says that they do not have it. So in the first hospital, we can see that there are 5 patients with a heart condition and there are 4 who do not have one. Moving to the next graph, here we can see the count of patients with the heart condition. So here we are able to see that there are 13 patients who are diagnosed with cardiomyopathy. They are suffering from this heart condition. and there's an overall of 71. And here we are just showing the top 8 heart conditions. And then we moving on to the next graph. Here we have the patients with the heart disease who survived or died after the treatment. So out of the 71 total patients, here we are able to see that there are only 78% of patients who survived after the treatment was done. Like the treatment was done post the diagnosis. So only 78% have survived, while almost 22% have died after the treatment. Then moving on to the next graph, here we are able to see the survival rate basis the conditions that they were diagnosed with. So, for example, there were 8 patients who had cardiomyopathy, uh, and they survived post the treatment, while there were 5 patients of who were suffering from cardiomyopathy but did not survive post the treatment. So yeah.
So, Professor, for the graph database, we have used Gremlin API uh, as I've shown you in the previous screenshots, and the same has been visualized using G.V. So this G.V is a visualization tool where we have connected our Azure Cosmos DB for Gremlin API, and these are the nodes and edges that we have implemented. So, like I said, there are 4 nodes: patient, symptoms, appointments, and treatment. So, if a patient has a symptoms, it goes to take an appointment, and on successful appointment, the patient takes the treatment. So, the conclusion of this project is that we have achieved industry need of transforming relational structure into NoSQL for faster retrieval, and maintain auto refresh of NoSQL database, and created interactive visualizations for the purpose of reporting and analysis. Thank you. Now we are open for the questions.
Hello, this is Group 6. Can we see which part of your ERD you used to implement your graph database? Oh, okay.
So these are the 4 vertices or nodes which we have used. That is patient, symptoms, appointment, and treatments. And it has a relationship between all the vertices using an edge.
Okay, thank you.
So I have one more question about the data refreshing the Python code.
Yeah, sure.
Like I heard that you mentioned that you will have like if you have any like audit tables to audit the data change in your like okay.
So the thing is that we have used the functionality called upset. So if there is any change in our underlying data set, so our underlying data set is in our relational database, that is in SQL Server. So if there is any change in the underlying data set, the same changes would be reflected in our Cosmos DB. Or if there is any new insert, the same new insert would be reflected in our Cosmos DB. It actually works like a merge in SQL.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions. Any other questions or comments for Team 7? Okay, Team 7, I like the visualizations created by G.V. Could you share your experience with it? Was it easy to use?
No, Professor. Actually, for us also, it was a pretty new learning curve. So initially we were, it was a great challenge to, make a connection with Azure Cosmos DB. Then on successful connection, then we imported the data of our graph DB into G.V, and then we tried to visualize it.
Okay, so it took some efforts. Okay.
Yes, Professor.
Other visualizations look good. And also, could you go back to your ERD, please?
Yep, sure, Professor.
So there are quite a few entities. How many document collections did you create in the Cosmos DB?
So, Professor, we have only created one as of now by using joins and collecting data through multiple tables. And the document name is patient details,
I see.
hospital details, sorry.
So your team used the embedding technique. You collapsed all details into one document.
Yes, Professor.
Okay, excellent. Okay, great work and a great presentation from Team 7. Thank you, and thank you for the questions.
Thank you, Professor.
Sure.